My name is Ariane Whitmore, and I'm 23 years old. By the time my family's choices came full circle and my sister walked into my office asking for a future, I had already built an empire on the ruins of the night they decided I didn't deserve one. People see the skyline view, the glass walls, the polished logo of Summit Operations Group etched into the reception desk, and they think I must have been born for this. The kind of girl who grew up in big houses and expensive schools, who always had a safety net waiting just off camera. They never picture the bus stop bench, or the $20 bill that was supposed to replace a home, or the way a front door can sound when it closes behind you like a verdict. Before I tell you about the day my sister sat across from me in a tailored blazer, resume in hand, pretending she didn't recognize my last name, I have to take you back to where it really began. The night they kicked me out. Our house in Springfield always smelled like vanilla air freshener and motor oil. My mother's obsession with appearances and my father's obsession with control layered on top of each other like competing perfumes. From the outside, we looked like a stock photo of a perfect American family. Inside, we were a quiet kingdom with one golden princess and one invisible ghost. My sister, Vanessa Whitmore, was the princess. Beautiful, articulate, a communications major with a smile that made people lean closer without even realizing they were doing it. Every compliment in that house curved toward her like gravity. Teachers, relatives, neighbors, their praise always seemed to find Vanessa's orbit and stay there. My orbit was different. I was the folding chair at the edge of the dining table. Metal, cold, easier to put away when company came. When Vanessa turned 16, she got a used Nissan with a giant red bow on the hood. The entire neighborhood came out to watch Dad hand her the keys, like he was passing down a crown. Mom took photos from every angle, already planning the caption for the family Christmas card. That same year, for my birthday, I got a Barnes & Noble gift card. "You love reading, right?" Mom said, already turning away before I could answer. "Thank you," I replied, swallowing the burn in my throat. I learned early that gratitude was the only language they were willing to hear from me. Still, some foolish, stubborn part of me kept working. I tutored neighborhood kids after school, fixed broken appliances for spare cash, stocked shelves at the corner store on weekends. I came home smelling like dust and cheap detergent and told myself it was worth it, that one day I'd leave this house and never come back. The day the envelope arrived, I thought that moment had finally come. It was heavy, the kind of envelope that doesn't just contain a letter, but a possibility. Dark navy seal of the university pressed into the upper corner, my name printed in crisp black ink. I carried it into the kitchen like it was a live wire that might change everything if I handled it carefully enough. I tore it open with shaking fingers. "Congratulations." The word shimmered on the page, my acceptance to Illinois State spelled out in lines that blurred as my eyes filled with tears. They'd given me a partial scholarship. Not everything, but enough to make the rest feel possible. That night, I stood in the kitchen, holding the letter like a flag of victory. "Mom, Dad," I said, voice shaking. "I got in. Illinois State. They gave me a partial scholarship. If I work and take out loans, I can cover the rest." Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. "We can't afford 2 tuitions," he said flatly, like he was commenting on the weather. "Vanessa's program at Northwestern is already expensive." Mom sighed, sorting bills on the granite counter like they were more fragile than I was. "You'll have to be realistic, Ariane," she said. "Life isn't a fairy tale. Not everyone gets the future they want." Realistic. The word hit me like a slap. "I've worked for this," I insisted, my voice rising before I could stop it. "I've saved, Dad set his paper down. His eyes were cold, the same shade of steel as the wrench he used at the shop. "Then cover all of it," he said. "You're 18 now. Time to be independent." Vanessa's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, smiled at whatever message lit up her screen, and then, without looking at me, murmured, "She's being dramatic." That word, dramatic, was the fuse. Years of swallowed hurt, of folding chairs and gift cards, and being the invisible daughter, all of it compressed into something sharp and explosive. "You've never even asked what I want," I said. "Not once. Not in 18 years. The kitchen went silent. Mom's hand trembled, just once, before she reached into her purse. She pulled out her wallet, thumbed through the bills, and pressed a single crumpled $20 into my palm. "Be independent," she said. That was it. No discussion about other loans. No brainstorming. No, "we'll figure this out." Just a transaction. $20 in exchange for a daughter. Dad picked up his newspaper again. Vanessa's eyes flickered toward me, just for a moment, then slid away. She didn't say a word. That night I packed. One suitcase, a few notebooks, my acceptance letter folded carefully and tucked into the inside pocket of my jacket like a secret I still wanted to believe in. The rain started just as I stepped onto the porch. It fell in cold, relentless sheets, soaking my hair, seeping into my shoes. Behind me, the living room light was warm, golden, gentle. I could see my family moving around inside like a scene from a commercial. No one came to the door. The lock clicked. The porch light flickered once, twice, and then went out. That was the sound of my childhood ending. The first night alone, I learned exactly how cold metal can feel. The bus stop bench was slick with rain. I sat with my suitcase at my feet, the crumpled $20 and my acceptance letter in my pocket like twin jokes, one small and cheap, the other too big and distant to touch. Every car that passed sent a wave of dirty water across my shoes, shrinking me with each splash. By midnight, the streetlights hummed and flickered, shivering like they were as tired as I was. I told myself I'd figure it out. Find a room, a job, anything. I started mentally filling out imaginary job applications and froze when I reached the line that asked for an address. I didn't have one. I was officially nowhere. By the third night, my body started to betray me. The rain soaked into my bones and stayed there. My chest felt tight. Every breath scraped. The world tilted whenever I tried to stand. I remember a man's voice cutting through the hum of passing traffic. "Hey, you okay there?" He was in his 50s, maybe, salt and pepper hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, a trucker jacket, coffee cup in one hand, worry creasing his forehead. "My name's Walter," he said gently. "Walter Green. You don't look okay." I tried to say I was fine. The word caught in a coughing fit that sent pain shooting through my ribs. Walter's jaw clenched. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders without asking. "Hang on, kid," he murmured. "I'm calling 911. He stayed with me until the ambulance came, one steady hand on my shoulder, like he was willing me to stay anchored to this world. The hospital lights were too bright, too clean. They made me feel like every bruise, every tremor, every failure was on display. A nurse clipped a plastic band around my wrist. Name Ariane Whitmore. Address unknown. That word hurt more than the pneumonia diagnosis. Unknown. Like I'd never existed anywhere at all. When I woke up 2 days later, there was a styrofoam cup of apple juice on the tray next to my bed and a $20 bill tucked underneath it. The nurse said Walter had left it for me. "Said you'd need it more than he does," she added, with a small, sad smile. They discharged me with antibiotics, a pamphlet for Harmony House Women's Shelter, and no idea what came next. Harmony House sat wedged between a coin laundry and a pawn shop, its yellow paint peeling, its neon sign flickering like it wasn't sure it wanted to stay lit. But when I stepped inside, the air was warm and smelled faintly of bleach and canned soup. A woman with tired eyes and a steady stance looked me straight in the face, like she was actually seeing me. "I'm Dorothy Kane," she said. "You get one bed, one locker, and one chance to rebuild. That's all we ask, that you try." For the first time since the door had shut behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Not safety, not yet, but the faintest outline of a beginning. I clutched my plastic hospital bag, my antibiotics, and my acceptance letter that might never be used, and stepped over the threshold. I had no idea that this peeling building between a pawnshop and a laundromat was the first brick in the foundation of everything I'd build later. Harmony House wasn't pretty. The walls were scuffed, the hallway lights buzzed, and the mattresses sank a little too much in the middle. But the first night I lay in that narrow bed, listening to the hum of the ancient heater and the distant clatter from the coin laundry next door, I realized something important. I was inside. Not on a bus stop bench, not under a leaking shelter roof. Inside. 4 walls. A door that locked from the inside. A bed that, while thin, was mine. Dorothy was not the comforting type. She didn't coo or sugarcoat. She spoke in terms of rules and consequences. Breakfast is at 7. Chores are after. You miss curfew twice, the bed goes to someone else. You put your name on the chore chart, you do the chore. Nobody here is above mopping a floor. I nodded, clutching the plastic bag of my belongings like someone might snatch it away. She held my gaze a beat longer. "You don't have to prove you deserve better than what they did to you," she said quietly. "You just have to prove to yourself that this isn't where your story stops." For days, my world shrank down to 3 things: my bed, my locker, and the chore list. I scrubbed bathrooms until bleach cracked the skin on my hands. I swept hallways, shook out faded rugs, folded donated sheets that smelled like other people's houses. The work was exhausting, repetitive, and unglamorous. But it was also something else. It was evidence. Every scuffed tile I scrubbed, every load of laundry I folded, every trash bag I dragged to the alley. Each one said, "I'm still here. I exist. I am not the trash they put out on the curb." The other women started calling me the quiet one, not in a cruel way, just as a fact. There was Jolene, who laughed too loudly to hide how often she cried in the showers. Mariah, who collected self-help pamphlets like they were talismans. Sherry, who knew every bus route in the city by heart. And then there was me, the girl who slept with a folded acceptance letter under her pillow. One Wednesday afternoon, after mopping the community room, I noticed a scrap of paper pinned to the bulletin board. The board was usually crowded with lost cat flyers and outdated job postings, corners curling. This one was new. Help wanted, Morrison's Diner, Oak Street and 5th. Handwritten. No logo. No glossy branding. Just a simple request, posted by someone who believed that if the right eyes saw it, the right person might walk through their door. Dorothy caught me staring at it. "They pay minimum wage," she said, "plus tips. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. You up for that?" My throat tightened. "I've never waited tables." "Good," she replied. "Means you won't think you know everything." The next morning, I stood outside Morrison's Diner in my cleanest clothes, a faded button-up I'd found in the donations bin and a pair of jeans that almost fit. I'd borrowed sneakers from one of the women, half a size too big, laces double-knotted. The diner looked like it belonged in another decade. Steel and glass exterior, big windows fogged from the warmth inside. A neon sign hummed, blinking the word "open" in uneven intervals. Inside, the air smelled like coffee, bacon, and something fried in oil that had lived many lives. The place was chaos. Every booth was full. Plates clattered. Kids shrieked. A baby wailed. A server with a high ponytail and dark circles under her eyes wove through the mess, like a dancer trying not to drop anything. Behind the counter was a woman in her late 50s, sleeves rolled up, gray streaks in her bun, flour dusting her apron like snow. She moved with a kind of bruised efficiency that told me she'd been doing this for a very long time. "Can I help you?" she called over the noise, not pausing in her work. "Yes," I said, forcing my voice to be steady. "I'm here about the help wanted sign." She glanced at me once, just once, eyes flickering over the borrowed sneakers, the too-thin shirt, the jacket that still had a thrift store tag ghost mark on the inside seam. "You ever been a waitress?" she asked. "No, but I learned fast." She snorted. Everyone says that before the lunch rush. A coffee pot beeped. Someone yelled, "Order up," from the kitchen. The bell over the front door jingled as another group walked in. She wiped her hands on her apron, grabbed a green apron from a hook by the door, and tossed it at me. "I'm Gloria Morrison," she said. "This is my place. Start by refilling those ketchup bottles. Try not to drop anything. If you're still here after a week, we'll talk about putting you on the schedule." That was it. No paperwork. No, "Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses." Just prove yourself. I tied the apron around my waist, picked up the crate of sticky ketchup bottles, and stepped into the chaos. The first few hours were embarrassing. I bumped into chairs. I almost collided with a busboy. I spilled water on a customer's placemat and apologized so many times I annoyed him more than the spill did. "Table 6 needs a refill," Gloria barked without looking up from the grill. "I thought I just—" "Not what you think. What is? Table 6, refill, go." I went. By the afternoon, my feet ached. My head spun from order numbers. My hands smelled like ketchup and dish soap. But somewhere between the 3rd coffee refill and the 7th round of "Can I get you anything else?" my brain started doing what it always did when confronted with chaos. It looked for patterns. I noticed that the same 2 booths always filled first in the mornings, that truckers chose the counter seats near the coffee pot, that families with kids gravitated to the booths near the windows, where they could corral little hands away from the traffic of the aisle. I saw where the bottleneck formed, at the pickup window between the kitchen and the floor, where plates waited just a beat too long. I noticed that the sugar packets ran out on the left side of the counter faster than the right, that the napkin dispensers near the door emptied twice as quickly as the ones by the bathrooms. By my 2nd day, I moved more smoothly. I memorized regulars' orders. "Decaf, splash of cream, whole wheat toast, no butter," I said, setting down a mug. The older man in the booth squinted at me. "How'd you—" "You came in yesterday," I replied. "Same time, same toast." He smiled for the first time. "Got a good eye, kid." "Maybe." But it was more than that. It wasn't just a good eye, it was a restless brain that couldn't stop tracking everything. During the slow hours, when the rush thinned and the floor hummed with dishwasher noise, I grabbed an old spiral notebook from the lost and found box with Gloria's permission. At the counter, in the corner, I started writing. I drew crude floor plans of the diner, marked down peak times, noted when deliveries came, where things ran out first, how long orders waited in the window before anyone picked them up. I tracked everything like I was mapping a battlefield. On the third day, a delivery truck backed into the alley behind the diner, bumping the trash cans with a dull clang. A guy about 30 with a worn baseball cap and a humming whistle hopped out, pulling the back door open. "Morning, Gloria," he called, wheeling a crate toward the kitchen. "Highway's a mess. Sorry I'm late." Gloria rolled her eyes but didn't look all that surprised. "That's the third time this month, Kevin," she said. "You trying to make me run this place with no eggs?" He grinned, unbothered. "Blame construction. Not my fault the city planners hate me." He caught me watching and tilted his chin. "You knew?" he asked. "Yes," I wiped my hands on my apron. "I'm Ariane." "Kevin Torres," he said, "human pack mule." I helped him wheel the crates in. Eggs, flour, potatoes, bulk coffee. It felt natural to put things where they made sense instead of where they happened to land. "Eggs nearest the fridge door," I said, moving them. "You use them the fastest. Coffee next to the grinder. Flour against the wall. Back corner. You don't want to trip over that." He watched me with raised eyebrows. "You always arrange stuff like this?" he asked. "It makes it easier later," I said with a shrug. "Less time wasted, less steps." "That's a logistics brain you've got there," he said. Rare. No one had ever said that word to me before. Logistics. Like what my brain did wasn't just overthinking, it was a skill. That night, after we closed and the diner's chairs were flipped upside down on the tables, the place finally quiet, I stayed behind with my notebook. I drew lines connecting deliveries to rush hours, circled bottlenecks, scribbled alternative schedules in the margins, arrows pointed to doorways and storage areas. It was messy, but it made sense to me. The next morning, I came in early. Gloria was already there, counting the till from the night before. The smell of coffee drifted through the air. My notebook was still on the counter where I'd left it, only now it was open. Gloria stood over it, glasses perched at the end of her nose, tracing the ragged napkin I'd used to scrawl a more detailed delivery schedule. "You did this?" she asked, not looking up. Heat rushed to my face. I was just thinking, it's probably stupid. It's not stupid," she cut in. "It's organized." She closed the notebook gently and tapped it once with her finger. "Keep thinking like this," she said. "The world runs on chaos. People who can see the pattern, they're the ones who keep it moving." She slipped the napkin into her apron pocket like it was something valuable. For the first time in a long time, I felt something in my chest that wasn't just pain or exhaustion. It felt almost like pride. Weeks blurred into months. My feet developed blisters that turned into calluses. My hands grew stronger from carrying heavy trays. The regulars learned my name. Gloria yelled less, grunted more. And at night, back at the shelter, I sat at the ancient communal computer, taking the chaos I saw and turning it into spreadsheets. Deliveries, peak hours, labor costs, routes. I didn't know it yet, but I was building the first blueprint of the empire that would one day bear my name. All I knew then was this: they had tried to throw me away. And here I was, quietly learning how the world moved, so that someday I could move it myself. At Morrison's Diner, I learned two things at the same time. People underestimate the girl refilling ketchup bottles. Systems don't care who you used to be. They only care how well you understand them. By the time spring melted into summer, I could anticipate problems before they happened. Gloria would grunt when she saw me reorganizing shelves or rewriting prep lists, but she never stopped me. Sometimes she even used my changes without comment, which for her was basically a standing ovation. But the real turning point came from something small, almost unnoticeable. Kevin's delivery truck broke down. It was a Tuesday, always a heavy delivery day, and Gloria was already short-staffed because another server called in sick. The morning was chaos. We needed eggs, flour, bacon, coffee, the basics. At 11:30, the lunch rush poured in. By 11:40, customers were getting agitated. At 11:42, Gloria slammed her spatula on the grill so hard the older regulars all flinched. "Where the hell is Torres?" she barked. "I swear, if he—" The phone rang. Gloria grabbed it. "Morrison's." A pause. "You're kidding me," she muttered. Then louder. "You what? Your engine died? Now? Of all days?" I didn't hear the rest of the conversation, but the tension tightening her shoulders told me everything. No deliveries, no ingredients, and a diner full of hungry people. Gloria hung up the phone and squeezed the bridge of her nose. For a moment, she looked older, tired, worn thin by a life that had demanded everything from her. "We're screwed," she muttered. I didn't think. "I just moved." "Gloria, do you have the supplier list?" I asked. She blinked at me. "Supplier list?" "From your invoices." She hesitated. "Back office, filing cabinet, third drawer." "Okay," I said. "Give me 10 minutes." I wasn't sure she heard me, but I ran anyway. The back office was tiny, barely enough space for a desk, a chair, and stacks of past due invoices in leaning piles. I dug through drawers, flipped through folders, and found what I needed. Supplier names, phone numbers, delivery routes, alternate warehouses. I grabbed the dusty landline phone. First call. "Hi, this is Morrison's Diner. Our delivery truck broke down. Is there any chance you can push us into today's route?" They couldn't, but another supplier could deliver flour if we met their minimum order. Another could bring coffee if we paid cod. Another could bring eggs if we were willing to pick them up from a hub 2 blocks away. Within 7 minutes, I had patchworked an emergency solution. I walked back into the kitchen. "We'll have flour and coffee in 20 minutes, I said. "Eggs and bacon in 35. Kevin will bring the rest tomorrow." Gloria stared at me. You did all that?" I shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "It wasn't hard. You've got all the suppliers already. You just don't usually use them because your schedule works." And then, with the smallest, quietest tilt of her lips, Gloria smiled. Not a big smile, not warm, but real. "You've got a head for logistics, Ariane," she said. "Don't waste it." 2 days later, Kevin came by during the mid-morning lull, looking sheepish. "Sorry again," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "My engine's older than sin." "You're fine," I said. "We figured it out." "We?" He grinned. "Pretty sure I heard it was you." I felt my face warm. Just did what needed to be done. He laughed. "You're something else, Whitmore." I didn't know what I was yet, but I was starting to. A month later, a new flyer appeared on the community board at Harmony House. Riverside Logistics, hiring dispatch coordinators. Base pay, benefits, full-time. Someone had circled the salary with a red pen. I stood there staring at it so long that Jolene eventually nudged my arm. "You should go for that." "I don't have a degree," I whispered. "So?" Jolene shrugged. "You have a brain." Dorothy overheard and stepped beside me. "Apply?" I hesitated. "They won't take me." "They might," Dorothy said, "but you definitely won't get it if you don't try." Later that night, after my shift at the diner, I sat at the community computer and typed my first real resume. It was small and unimpressive. Education, high school diploma, work experience, Morrison's Diner, server, skills, organization, scheduling, customer communication. I stared at the screen for a long time. It didn't feel like enough, but it was all I had. I printed it using Gloria's office printer, which rattled like it was coughing dust. The paper smelled faintly of coffee and burnt toner. Riverside Logistics was in a renovated brick building on the edge of town. Clean, bright, full of people who looked too polished to ever imagine sleeping on a bench. I almost walked out before they called my name. The hiring manager, Tom Bradford, was a quiet man in his 40s with a no-nonsense expression and a tie that didn't quite match his shirt. He didn't smile much. "Why do you want this job?" he asked. I didn't give the answer I'd practiced. Instead, I told him the truth. Because I know how to build a system when I don't have one. I know how to fix chaos. I know how to keep things running when everything is falling apart. He didn't blink, didn't type anything. So I kept talking. I tracked the diner's busiest hours, reorganized their storage, and rescheduled their deliveries. I didn't think it was special, I just thought it made sense. Tom leaned back slightly, studying me like he was piecing together a puzzle. "No degree," he said. "Not judgment, just fact." "No," I admitted. "But you reorganized a diner's entire operations by instinct." I nodded, palms sweating. Tom tapped his pen against his notepad. Once, twice, then set it down. "You know what most college graduates don't have," he said. "Practical problem-solving skills." He stood. "We can work with that. The job is yours if you want it." For a second, the world spun. My knees nearly buckled. I had to grip the arm of the chair to steady myself. "I want it," I managed. He nodded. "Training starts Monday." Riverside changed everything. For the first time, I wasn't waiting tables or wiping down counters. I was designing the flow of trucks, deliveries, and schedules, mapping routes, solving problems, making decisions that affected entire companies. And I was good at it. Really good. I redesigned delivery routes that cut fuel costs by 12%. I streamlined scheduling so drivers spent less time waiting and more time moving. I built tracking spreadsheets that management asked other coordinators to copy. People started coming to me before going to supervisors. And that was when I met Ethan. He appeared in the break room on my third week. Dark hair, warm hazel eyes, rolled up sleeves, holding a mug with a chip in the rim. He worked in financial operations. "Are you the new logistics girl?" he asked. "Dispatch coordinator," I corrected automatically. His lips twitched. "Right. Dispatch coordinator." He gestured at the spreadsheet I was printing. "Is that yours?" "Yes. It's beautiful." I blinked. "It's supply chain data." "Exactly," he said, like I just handed him a piece of art. That was how it started. Coffee in the mornings, shared lunches, late-night planning sessions. Respect first, attraction later. A slow-burn connection that felt real and terrifying in equal measure. Madison Clark, his ex, appeared during a joint meeting one fall afternoon. Polished, confident, everything I wasn't. She greeted Ethan too warmly. He greeted her too politely. Nothing happened, but insecurity curled sharp inside my ribs anyway. After the meeting, Ethan caught up to me. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I lied. He didn't push. He just walked beside me, close enough that I felt his presence like a small, steady force. A force I had no idea I would someday rely on. Within a year, Riverside wasn't enough for me. I could feel it, this restless, urgent calling in my bones. I didn't want to just fix someone else's systems. I wanted to build my own. So I did. I borrowed a desk from the copy shop owner above their storefront, bought a secondhand laptop, used the little money I'd saved to file business paperwork. That was the beginning of Summit Operations Group, a company built on fairness, efficiency, and the belief that small businesses deserved big business systems without the cruelty. By 23, Summit had 15 employees, clients across the state, and an office overlooking the Chicago River. On the wall of my office, I framed 3 things. My hospital wristband that said unknown address, the crumpled $20 bill my mother gave me the night she sent me away, Summit's first printed logo. Together, they told the story of where I'd been and where I refused to ever return. One quiet Tuesday morning, my HR director, Natalie Shaw, appeared in my doorway with her tablet. "We have a new candidate for the operations coordinator position," she said. "Strong background. 3 years of corporate communications." She paused. "Her name is Vanessa Whitmore." My blood ran cold. The world slowed. The air thickened. My sister. The girl they kept. The girl they chose. I didn't look up. I didn't let anything show on my face. "Schedule her for Thursday afternoon," I said. Natalie nodded and walked away. As her footsteps faded, I stared at the framed $20 bill on the wall. The ink had faded, but the memory behind it? Sharp, unforgettable, unforgiven. Thursday arrived with the kind of rain that feels personal, steady, insistent, whispering against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office like it remembered a porch in Springfield and wanted me to remember it too. I came in early, earlier than my staff expected, earlier than Ethan thought I would after another late night fixing a client's broken operations model. I straightened the papers on my mahogany desk 3 separate times, rearranged the frames on the wall, checked the clock, checked the door. My body was calm. My pulse was not. The past 5 years had buried themselves beneath layers of spreadsheets, contracts, and system pipelines. I had built a future so efficient, so meticulously structured that there was almost no room for the past to enter. Almost. Then a resume with a familiar last name cracked the door open. At 10 a.m., Ethan knocked lightly before letting himself in. His hair was still damp from the rain. He always walked, instead of taking an Uber, claiming the city felt different when you moved through it slowly. He set a warm cup of coffee on my desk. "Black, 2 sugars," he said. "You've been avoiding breakfast again." I forced a smile. "Thanks." He studied me, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You're tense." "I have interviews today." "You have interviews every week," he said gently. "This is different." We'd been together for a year, which meant he knew the difference between my professional calm and this, whatever this was. But I couldn't give him the truth. Not yet. "It's just a lot of applicants, big decision." He didn't believe me, but he didn't press. Another reason I loved him. He respected my walls, even when he didn't understand why they were there. Ethan touched my shoulder briefly, warm and grounding. "If you need anything, you know where I am." I know. When he left, the office felt colder. At 1:02 p.m., Natalie texted me. "She's here. Would you like me to send her in?" I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I typed back, 2 o'clock on the dot, please have her wait. I needed the full hour, not to prepare questions, not to steady my breathing, but to make sure I walked into this moment as the woman I'd become, not the girl who had once stood outside in the rain, waiting for a door that would never open. At exactly 2 p.m. a soft knock came. Natalie pushed the door open just enough to step inside. Ms. Whitmore, she said, your next applicant is ready. My hands were steady when I folded them on the desk. Send her in. The door opened wider. The sound of heels clicked against the hardwood, confident, precise, familiar in a way that made my throat tighten. Vanessa entered, holding a leather portfolio and wearing a navy blazer that looked like something our mother would have picked out for her. She had always looked like success was her natural habitat. She still did. Her hair was styled in soft waves around her shoulders. Her makeup was subtle but perfect. Her nails were manicured in a pale, neutral shade. She didn't recognize me. Of course she didn't. 5 years was a long time. The last time she'd seen me, I was skinny from stress, exhausted, wearing soaked clothes, and carrying everything I owned in one suitcase. Now I was behind a desk she would never have imagined me sitting at. Good afternoon, Vanessa said with a practiced smile. Thank you for seeing me. Her voice hadn't changed. Smooth, confident, a voice made for presentations, not apologies. Afternoon, I said, matching her tone perfectly. Please have a seat. She sat without hesitation. Natalie remained standing just long enough to complete the formal introduction. This is Ms. Ariane Whitmore, founder and CEO of Summit Operations Group. The moment the name landed, something flickered, just a tiny twitch across Vanessa's expression. But she blinked it away. Whitmore wasn't exactly a rare surname. She had no reason, yet, to connect it to the girl she'd watched from behind the living room window as I vanished into a storm. She meant to treat this like any other interview, and I meant to let her try. Natalie excused herself, leaving us alone. For a few seconds, the only sound was rain tapping against the glass. I gestured at her portfolio. Let's begin. Her resume was strong. 3 years in corporate communications, experience managing timelines, coordinating teams, organizing projects. Her answers were polished, almost too polished. She used words like synergy and stakeholder alignment. She spoke like she was auditioning for a TED Talk. If I'd been any other CEO, I would have thought she was impressive. But I wasn't any other CEO. I was the sister she left behind. And 5 years of silence had sharpened me. After 20 minutes of professional pleasantries, I shifted. Tell me about a time you had to handle a conflict involving fairness, I said. She hesitated just a beat too long. Well, Vanessa began, at my previous company, 2 team members both wanted the same project. I had to mediate. I made sure everyone got what they deserved based on merit. I leaned back, steepling my fingers. Fairness, I repeated. Interesting word. Her eyes flickered. What does fairness mean to you, Vanessa? She straightened. It means equal opportunity, no special treatment. Everyone gets the same chance. Everyone, I murmured. Yes. My gaze drifted over her shoulder to the wall behind me. The frames hung in a neat row. Hospital bracelet, unknown address, crumpled $20 bill, Summit logo. Vanessa followed my line of sight. Her eyes landed on the bracelet first, then the bill. Her expression tightened. Then, recognition hit her like a wave. Her lips parted, her breath faltered. Her fingers went slack around her portfolio. Ari? Her voice cracked on my name. Ariane? Slowly, deliberately, I met her gaze. We're here to discuss your qualifications for this position, I said evenly. Let's stay professional. Her face drained of color. I didn't know, she whispered. Mom and Dad, they said you left. They said you wanted to be independent, that you didn't want anything to do with us. I lifted one hand, stopping her mid-sentence. We'll stay on topic, I said quietly. This is an interview, not a reunion. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't stop them that night, she choked out. I should have said something, should have done something. You watched, I said, my voice still calm. From the window. The room went silent. The rain pressed itself against the glass. Vanessa trembled. Are you angry? She whispered. I studied her, every polished inch of her, before answering. No, I said. Anger is something I couldn't afford. I was too busy surviving. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, completely undone. Ariane, I'm sorry. I nodded once. I know. I let the silence stretch between us, thick with everything 5 years could hold. Then I said with a CEO's clarity, let's continue the interview. For several seconds, Vanessa didn't move. She sat frozen in the leather chair across from me, her portfolio limp in her hands, her mascara starting to smudge at the corners of her eyes. Every polished piece of her professional mask was cracking, and the woman who had walked confidently into my office minutes ago was now staring at me like she was looking at a ghost. Or maybe she was looking at her own guilt made human. I folded my hands on my desk, maintaining the same steady posture I'd kept through thousands of meetings. I wouldn't let myself waver, not now, not when the past had finally walked into my office in heels and a navy blazer. "Tell me," I said with measured calm, "why do you want this job?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She stared at me for a long moment, chest rising and falling in uneven breaths, before she forced herself to speak. I didn't know this company was yours," she whispered. "When I applied, I thought—" She shook her head. "I don't know what I thought." "Let's focus on the present," I said, "not the past." She swallowed hard and tried again. "I want the job because I'm trying to start over," her voice thinned. "Things haven't gone the way I planned." I tilted my head slightly. "Meaning?" She hesitated, like opening up was physically painful. "I lost my last job. Budget cuts. I've been applying everywhere, but no one's calling me back." Her shoulders hunched inward. "I'm not doing as well as everyone thinks." There it was, the first real truth she'd offered me since she walked in. I didn't soften, not yet. "Let's talk about merit then," I said. "What do you believe makes you qualified to work here?" "I work hard," she whispered. "I really do." "Everyone says that in interviews." "I learn fast." "Everyone says that too." Her eyes shone with fresh tears. "Then what do you want me to say?" she burst out. "That I made mistakes? That I didn't speak up when I should have? That I let you walk into the rain that night and didn't do a thing to stop it?" Her voice broke. "That I've thought about it every day for 5 damn years?" Silence. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. I leaned back in my chair, maintaining perfect composure even as something old and bruised twisted inside my chest. "You know," I said with a calmness that felt almost surgical, "the hardest part of that night wasn't Dad telling me to leave." Vanessa's breath caught. "It wasn't Mom handing me a $20 bill like it was a favor. It wasn't even the door slamming behind me." I let the next words fall like a slow blade. "It was you, watching from the window, saying nothing." She covered her mouth with her hand as a sob escaped her. "I was scared," she whispered behind her fingers. "I was so scared." "I was too." "But you were alone," she murmured, "and I stayed inside." The truth of that hung between us like a suspended weight, undeniable, heavy, quietly catastrophic. After a moment, she took a shaky breath. "Are you going to hire me?" she asked, voice trembling. And there it was, the power shift, the reversal, the universe closing its circle. I studied her face carefully, the same face that had once been lit by our parents' pride while I stood in the background like furniture, the same face that had watched me disappear into a storm. But she wasn't the golden girl right now. She was just human, just Vanessa. And I was no longer the girl who begged to be seen. "Hiring decisions here aren't based on family," I said. "They're based on merit, on fairness." She nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I can do fairness," she whispered. "I want to." "Can you work under someone who values systems over shortcuts?" I asked. "Yes." "Can you respect structures that don't bend based on who you are or where you came from?" "Yes." "Can you accept leadership without resentment, even when that leadership comes from the sister you once abandoned?" She choked on a breath but managed, "Yes." Slowly, deliberately, I closed her resume. "In that case," I said quietly, "you'll start on Monday." She stared at me, stunned. You're giving me the job?" "I am." "Why?" she whispered. For the first time that afternoon, I let a sliver of vulnerability show. "Because fairness isn't something you demand from the world," I said. "It's something you build. I'm giving you the chance to help me build it." Her tears fell harder, quieter this time, not panicked or desperate, but relieved in a way that loosened some ancient tightness in her posture. She stood, hesitating as if unsure whether she should thank me or collapse. "Thank you," she said finally, voice raw. "I won't waste it." "We'll see," I said, professional once more. "Earn it." She left with her shoulders trembling, her fingers gripping her portfolio like it was a lifeline. A moment later, Natalie slipped into my office, brows raised. "So, thoughts? Should I move her to the next stage?" "She's hired," I said. Natalie blinked. "Really?" "Yes." "You're sure?" "Yes." "Any special accommodations?" she asked gently, unaware of the landmine she was stepping near. I shook my head. "None." Her expression eased. "Understood. I'll process her onboarding." She stepped out just as Ethan stepped in. He glanced between the doorway Vanessa had left through and my face. "You good?" he asked softly. "Yes." "Sure?" No, I admitted quietly, but I will be. He crossed the room, placing his hand on my back in slow, grounding circles. You don't have to tell me, he said. Not until you're ready. My throat tightened, not with sadness, but with gratitude. I will, I murmured, just not today. He nodded. Whatever you need, he said. And then he left, pulling the door shut behind him with gentle care, the opposite of how my parents had once closed a door on me. I sank into my chair, staring at the framed bracelet, the faded $20, the glowing Summit logo. For the first time in 5 years, something inside me shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something close. Release. The building emptied slowly that night. First the interns, then the coordinators, then the managers shutting off lights as they went, leaving the hallways dim except for the soft glow of exit signs. By the time the office was quiet, the rain had softened into a gentle patter, like the world was finally exhaling. I stood alone in my office, staring at the 3 framed objects on my wall. The hospital wristband, unknown address. The wrinkled $20 bill. The Summit Operations Group logo. They were no longer symbols of what I'd lost. They were landmarks of what I'd built. Still, my chest felt tight, my mind unable to settle after the confrontation with Vanessa. Forgiveness wasn't immediate. It wasn't instinctive. It wasn't even what I wanted. But something in me had shifted. Maybe it was the look on her face, the moment her mask shattered. Maybe it was the admission I never expected from her. I've thought about it every day for 5 years. Maybe it was just time. I grabbed my coat, locked my office, and stepped into the empty hallway where my heels echoed against the polished floor. The elevator chimed softly and carried me down through the building I had once built from nothing more than instinct and desperation. The rain outside smelled like wet pavement and memory. I drove without thinking, past the city lights, past the bridge, past the streets that had become familiar over the years. With every mile, Chicago faded into the rearview mirror. By the time I realized where I was heading, it was too late to turn around. Springfield. The town hadn't changed. The same flickering streetlights, the same narrow roads, the same quiet stillness that always felt like a held breath. But I had changed. When I parked near the bus stop, a wave of something heavy washed over me. Not grief exactly, not fear. Something older and deeper, like a bruise pressed after years of healing. The bench was still there, dented metal, cold to the touch, the same one I slept on while rain soaked through my clothes and pneumonia crept into my lungs. I stood in front of it for a long time. Then I opened the passenger door and picked up the 2 things I had brought, a small bouquet of white lilies and the framed $20 bill, the bill that had once been all my mother offered me when she sent me into the storm. I laid the flowers gently on the bench, then placed the frame beside them. The street was empty. The world was quiet. This is where they ended me, I whispered, and where I began. The rain, or maybe just mist, hung in the air, soft and cold, wrapping around me like a familiar memory. A painful one, but no longer suffocating. I sat down on the bench, the metal chilly even through my coat. I thought of Dorothy at the shelter, giving me rules instead of pity. Gloria at the diner, handing me an apron without judgment. Kevin calling me a logistics brain like it was a compliment. Tom hiring me because I could solve problems, not because of who I was. Ethan giving me a love that felt steady, not conditional. Natalie trusting my choices without question. And now Vanessa, starting a new job on Monday, trembling, but trying. Trying, finally, to stand in a place where fairness mattered more than favoritism. I closed my eyes and breathed, letting the past settle, not erased, not forgotten, but placed in its rightful place as a chapter, not a sentence. When I finally got back into the car, dawn was beginning to touch the horizon. I drove through Springfield slowly, recognizing everything but feeling connected to none of it. The town hadn't grown smaller. I had simply outgrown it. As I merged back onto the highway, my phone buzzed against the cup holder. The screen flashed. Mom calling. For the first time in 5 years, I answered. Hello? There was silence, heavy, uneven. Then a voice I knew too well, older and cracked. Ariane, she whispered. Is that you? Is it really you? It's me. A tiny broken sob came through the line. I'm so sorry, she said. I was wrong. We were so wrong. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't break. I just breathed. I know, I said softly. But I'm different now. Things are different now. Can we see you? She asked. Can we talk, please? I thought about it, really thought. Maybe, I said, when I'm ready, on my terms. Anything, she said. We'll wait. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. But Mom, I added gently, the door you closed 5 years ago, I've opened a new one, and I'm the one who decides who walks through it. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was understanding. I ended the call, rolled down the window, and let the morning air wash over me as the city skyline rose in the distance. Chicago, my home, the future I built myself. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. Did you get home safe? Want breakfast together? I smiled, small, real, unguarded. On my way back. Eggs sound good, I typed. His reply was instant. Always. Drive safe. The road stretched out long and open ahead of me, golden with sunrise. For the first time in 5 years, I felt light, free, whole. And as the city came into view, I whispered, more to myself than to anyone else, everyone deserves a future, even the ones who were told they didn't. Behind me lay the bench, the lilies, and the $20 bill. Ahead of me lay everything else.